Hey guys, so I wanted to show you a couple different things dealing with 1911s as far as, like, say you're going to pick one up used and you want to see if it's a good 1911. Money doesn't have a lot to do with it. No matter if it's a $300 used 1911 or it's a $2,500 1911, there's a couple things that you can look for that will help you choose a good one at the store. There's also a lot of things that you will not know until it's too late. Doesn't mean they can't be fixed. I fix them all the time. In fact, I have one here on my bench, this Taurus over here, and I'm going to actually, unfortunately, I'm going to have to use that as my bad example because it's got just a ton of problems. But I want to show you a couple things just dealing with, like, terminology and stuff like that, and show you first what a good 1911 is like. So with this is actually my 1911. I'm going to shoot IDPA with this year. It's the slide and frame are from Rock Island Armory. Everything inside it, my hammer, my sear, my disconnector, all that stuff, that's all STI, Ed Brown style, beaver tail grip safety, Novak sights. It's got an EGW bushing, STI trigger, VZ grips, all that fun stuff. Not that you can't grab one of these off the shelf and compete with it, but I've just been slowly upgrading and changing and shaping and moving some things around that I really like, to make something that just shoots awesome. And this gun does. This gun shoots way better than I could. So a couple things that you want to look for, aside from it being aesthetically pleasing and whatever you're looking for, brand name if that's important to you, whatever. Now, I've seriously avoided the warranty on this because I've ground and cut and blued and done just about everything you can do to this thing. But the Rock Islands obviously come with a lifetime warranty, which is always a nice thing. So if you buy one off the shelf, like my 10mm here, I haven't voided, I haven't destroyed this one. Not that I've destroyed mine, I've just changed everything about it. If this gun ever didn't shoot right, I could call them up and they can take care of it for me. But so this is a 10mm, very close to the same as my 9mm here. One major difference is that some guns, depending on their size, usually commander length and smaller, depending on the brand, may have a bull barrel, and some might not. So this one has the 10mm has a bull barrel, so you can see that it's flared out and everything like that. It does not use a barrel bushing. So traditionally 1911s use a barrel bushing, usually 45s, anything in a full-length government size uses a bushing. This does not. This is a bushingless barrel, and I have a couple bull barrels that are awesome shooters. So that's like a whole nother, like, some people like one, some like the other. I like them both. I think they both shoot great for me. This is a 2011 style, so this is a full rail, also bushing barrel. This is a heavy gun. This is a super heavy gun. It's a double stack gun, holds a lot of rounds, controls muzzle flip because it's so heavy, and I also have a GI 38 Super. You can see that this one doesn't have a full-length guide rod up front, which is kind of nice. You get injured, you can rack it off of the table if you need to. This one's had a little bit of work done to it too, but out of the box, this shoots half-inch groups at 25 yards. So, and this is a cheap gun, I'm telling you. But yeah, anyway, so there's lots of things to look at. One of the most important things are going to be your magazines, to be honest with you. So if your gun, a lot of people say, oh, my gun only came with one magazine. To me, that's a good thing. Go out and buy yourself some good magazines. A bunch of us, Ryan, Gabe, shitty magazines suck. If they're, like we bought a bunch of these like Colt knockoff magazines and stuff like that, they won't lock open on the last round. There's a reason for that. I can get into that with you personally if you want to know why. The followers on them aren't anti-tilt. They're supposed to be, but they don't work, so it doesn't engage the slide stop in the last round. They're junk. So you want to invest in decent magazines. There's a lot of good companies out there. Chip McCormick, Wilson Combat, Mechgar makes decent magazines. I use a lot of metal form magazines in my 9mm. Actually, I love Act Mags. I can't believe I forgot that. That's like one of my favorite magazines is Act Mags. Those are actually what the Rock Islands come with from the factory, and I think Wilson Combat ships their guns. Or I'm sorry, not Wilson Combat. Les Bear or something ships their guns with it. I love Act Mags. I love the smooth anti-tilt follower, and they're super reliable for me. So anyway, let me get back to like what to look for. If you're buying a gun with a barrel bushing, one of the things to look for is how tight it is. Now, I can't even get this one out without a wrench. I need to use a special wrench, either one that looks like that or one of these ones here, to actually turn this barrel bushing out. So I'm going to use one from a factory gun versus another factory gun. So a lot of people will go in and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's pretty tight, at the gun shop. And if it does move, yeah, that is a problem. But you really can't learn a lot from that because it's in lockup. So the best thing you can do is get the gun out of lockup. If your gun shop is nice enough to let you dismantle the gun, which, everywhere I go, they're always like, yeah, that's cool, just don't put an idiot mark on it, which is basically taking this slide stop and scraping it up alongside the frame there and putting a nice gouge in it. I love to buy guns that are, somebody bought it for a whole bunch of money and shot 50 rounds through it, one box of ammo, and then never shot it again. Those are great guns. Hopefully they cleaned it. If they didn't, no big deal. We got stuff for that too. Your most important thing is not, contrary to popular belief, is not slide to frame fit. Yes, that's important. A little bit of play is also important, because if you want it to function when it gets a tiny bit of dust on it, you're going to need that. One of the most important things is how tight this barrel bushing fits into the slide. From the factory, almost none of these are bad. Now, there's no way I can show you this on camera, and you're going to see that, yes, this can tilt, and because John Moses Browning made this a tilting barrel, this needs to come out of lock. You're gonna have tilt in here. Now, this shouldn't be super sloppy. You shouldn't be able to see like big gaping spaces around the barrel here, but from a factory, generally these are typically pretty excellent. Where they're not typically excellent from a lot of manufacturers is how they fit into the slide. So this bushing should fit into the slide and be pretty nice and tight. You can see a little bit of movement, and that's because there's need for that movement for this thing to function a little bit, as far as like, your range gun or whatever. If you're building a bullseye gun, that thing's got to be super tight. But you want, a little bit of movement's not a big deal. In fact, Ryan, his 1911, his Rock Island, has the tightest barrel bushing I've ever seen come out of the factory for a factory gun. Now I'll show you with this. This is a slide off of a Taurus that I'm working on. This right here, that is unacceptable. That is way too much horizontal and lateral, and that is no good. So keep in mind, your slide is very, very important, because that's where your sights are. If that barrel can move around freely, not only is it going to beat up your lugs a little bit in the back of your barrel, but it's also maybe not going to be true to your sights. That's not a good thing. So the other thing that you may want to take a look at is looking at the frame bridge, if you can. This one actually is a great example, but you might not be able to see it on camera. If it's a used gun, or maybe it's had some rounds put through it, there will be a bow tie right here that is kind of battered, not battered, but where there's an absence of grease on the frame, where that means your barrel, and specifically this portion of the barrel, are meeting the frame, which is what you want. You don't want you down here be contacting the frame, because if you were to, none of us are stupid. If I were to pound on the on this right here, eventually I would shear this lug off. But if I were to hit it close to the barrel, it would be able to withstand much, much, much more abuse. So that's something else to look for as well. But I thought I'd just share that, because a lot of people go in and I see them fiddling with them in the store, and some stores aren't cool with you taking them apart. I'm not buying it unless I can take it apart. But those are some things I always look for in a 1911, because that tells me that foundationally the gun's is decent. That doesn't mean that if you find a gun that doesn't have, you find a gun with a bushing like this is honestly really bad. But if you find a gun where the bushing's a little bit loose, that's no big deal. Get a new bushing, you could fit a new bushing right in the gun, and the gun will be back to normal. But there may be a reason, if this is so sloppy, maybe the rest of the gun is sloppy. And one tiny example of that is the barrel on this Taurus is actually peening itself right here because it wasn't machined properly. It's actually slamming into this part of the frame right here, as opposed to riding the breech face like it should. You're supposed to have the weight of the barrel being pushed up on the strong part of the barrel, not some weak edge. And another example of something that has sloppy tolerances, and you may not be able to see this either, but this amount of spring here, a little bit of spring's no big deal, but clocking, you can see how it's rotating like a clock. That's not good. So that means this thing's going to throw rounds in all different directions because that's clocking the extractor. So I thought I'd just show you some things. Those are some things you can look for. Hopefully that helps, and if you have questions about anything specific, I'll definitely be happy to help you out and answer them.